And may I say, let's remember always that freedom will always prevail. And I know that Irish people know very well what I'm talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Instituto Cervantes in this new occasion in which we have several privileges. But I think the first one to start with is the privilege of repeating and having the second opportunity, the second year consecutive, in which this embassy and the Cervantes Institute will dedicate our cultural space to analyze the history of the Armada in relation with Ireland. Last year, we had the pleasure and the honor of having Alonso González de Gregorio y Álvarez de Toledo, Duke of Medina Sidonia, and Professor Declan Downey. Both participated with the event with the title was Armada de Razones, la grande y felicísima Armada. This year, we continue with this initiative on both sides, in the sense that on one side it was our will to continue, and on the other side, to remind you that the audience has been requesting that, and because we have a group of people and a lot of enthusiasm related to the subject we are talking about. So that was an excellent opportunity for us to work on this initiative. And let's see if we can focus again on this incredible story in which the legend, history, and literature, they go all together, and it becomes a certain sort of mysterious and fantasy coming back from the past and the present for us. I always insist that the fact that the Armada is in the memory and the conscience of so many people in Ireland shows that the Armada story was not really a catastrophe. It was a success, in the sense it's been becoming a very strong link and a very deep connection through the ages, through times, between Irish people and Spanish people. And the story, well, that's a beautiful story, that it's not story only, but it's a reality it's an excellent excuse for meeting wonderful people like you here. So welcome back. Welcome to the Armada story that we will try to recreate again here. And I will immediately introduce you to the responsibles. I would like to emphasize the effort of the Instituto Cervantes and his director, who has responsibilities in Manchester, and unfortunately you can understand the reason why he's not here with us. On second, to all the staff of the Instituto Cervantes, and I would like to insist in the help of the Spanish, all my staff in the Spanish embassy, and very especially to Rafael Soriano. We have two, may I say, golden guests, and last year was very difficult, so we had to keep these high standards that's been working on that line this year, and we have the honor here to have two very powerful personalities, and at the same time coming from different worlds, academic, journalism, but I think that it will be an excellent combination, the one that we will have here. Let's start with our Spanish guest, David Rebelles. Was born in Barcelona, and we studied in the same university, obviously, as you can see, in different periods of time. To tell you a little bit about what he did after the communication sciences in the university, in the Autonomous University of Barcelona, journalist and writer, he's been doing especially what's so important in our culture nowadays, as telling stories and doing what we call it divulgación, the possibility to give the possibility to common people to know stories that probably they've been for a long time in the academic world. He's been publishing all kind of travel guides, and of course, among them, there's one of Dublin that he will have to talk about it one day to us about this. Since 2012, he's professor of the Master of Journalism in the Universidad Autónoma de Barcelona. He's passionate about the story of the Armada, and he's been writing reportage in El País. He's here to share time with us, and tomorrow he will start a trip, another trip, because he knows very well Ireland, looking for more locations about the story of the Armada. And since the end of 2015, he wrote a book called En los confines de Hibernia, in the limits of Hibernia, tras la leyenda de la Armada Invencible in Irlanda, something like Steps Behind the Legend of the Armada in Ireland. And here starts my story with a bit, because I had the pleasure to read his book. It's extremely interesting, and it gave the opportunity, let's put it that way, that to learn for the audience, for the Spaniards, because some of them, they know so much about it, a little bit more about that story. And I've got to say that this amenity is very important, the capacity to communicate this information. That's very important nowadays, especially when we fight against so many technologies in this competition to see who's the winner. Entonces debo decir que David ha ganado, creo yo, esa batalla, porque ha conseguido hacernos un libro ameno y muy divulgativo sobre la historia de la Armada Invencible, y centrándolo en Irlanda, con lo cual para mí es un gran honor tener la oportunidad de tener aquí a alguien a quien leí, que me gustó y pensé, me gustaría intentar que viniera a Irlanda. Y antes de yo mismo intentarlo, este instituto que tiene poderes telepáticos fue capaz de intuir que era una buena opción, y así se hizo. Con lo cual, eres muy, muy bienvenido, David, y ahora tendremos tiempo de hablar. On the other side, we have a very powerful personality on the academic world. Fionbarr Moore, some of you know him personally, you know him very well, but he's one of the personalities related to the wreck and to the findings in Streedagh County in Sligo. The finds from the excavation that confirmed that the wreck was undoubtedly La Juliana, one of the most important discoveries in the last years in the archaeology in Ireland. So it's on Fionbarr Moore is a referent on subaquatic archaeology, marine archaeology. He's a senior archaeologist with the National Monument Service, Department of Arts, Heritage, Regional, Rural and Gaeltacht Affairs, and he has been head of Underwater Archaeology Unit since 1999. The UAU has a wide and varied work brief dealing with development impacts on underwater cultural heritage and maintaining the wreck inventory of Ireland database. Investigation of sites also forms part of his work brief, and UAU archaeologists have directed a number of dive surveys and excavation at significant wreck site of our coast and our inland waterways. He has contributed papers and chapters to a number of journals and books on underwater archaeology and maritime story. Fionbarr is chair of the European Archaeological Consilium's Underwater Cultural Heritage Working Group, and he's also former council member of the Royal Society of Antiquaries of Ireland and of the Discovery Programme, Centre for Irish Archaeological Research. He's currently directing the UAU investigation of the Spanish Armada wreck sites at Streedagh, County Sligo. In few words, we have with us, if you allow me, the Indiana Jones of the subaquatic archaeological of Ireland. And I tell you not because of his adventurous physical appearance, but the character of Fionbarr was a fantastic person. And that's a little bit what we expect from our guest, because among other privileges, we expect an illustrated update on research undertaken by the Underwater Archaeology Unit, and he can tell us about the magnificent bronze cannons, the gun carriage wheels, bronze cauldron, and other elements of La Juliana. The history of the Juliana will be presented by Fionbarr, and an update will be given on the ongoing conservation of the excavated material. An update will also provide on recent research carried out by the UAU on these artifacts and the possibility in the future, because we really, and I think that we all agree on that, we have to do something great with this material. We have to show it to the people. We have to show it to the audience, and we must think that in the future we have to work on that. About David, he will tell us a little bit his connection with Armada, what he's been doing, writing and reading, the passion, a little bit the landscapes that he's been, because I'm sure that there's another perception. I always say that the landscape, when there's a foreigner who sees a landscape, he can always create a new interpretation that is new for us. And he will tell us the story of La Juliana too, from the beginning to the end, from the creation to the sinking. And why not? I think that after this troubling experience, David can tell us a little bit about the people he has been meeting, that he tells a little bit about in the books, and to tell us about the emotions, the connections, and a little bit the human anecdotes that he can help to recreate that story in a, if you allow me, a little bit deeper way. So I've been talking too much. That's, in any case, the pride of the presentation I wanted to do for all of you. And I will ask our guest to start his intervention. Then we'll have the time to sit and to discuss and to attend, to open the floor and to attend any of your questions. So, Fionbarr, David, who's going to start? David, adelante. Gracias.
Pues buenas tardes, señoras y señores. Para mí es un verdadero honor, un privilegio estar aquí hoy en el Instituto Cervantes. Como ha comentado ahora el señor embajador, para explicarles, para transmitirles una de mis pasiones profesionales, pero también vitales, así lo entiendo, como es revivir, recuperar el legado de la Spanish Armada en Irlanda, que como digo, y como él también decía, como decía el señor embajador, es una grandísima historia. Porque la pervivencia de la huella de la Spanish Armada en Irlanda está presente en la memoria, en el paisaje, en la toponimia, en la leyenda, y por eso para mí, recientemente además, con Fionbarr, como luego veremos, con la recuperación y la conservación de estos cañones de la Juliana, pues para mí es un verdadero honor, como decía, recuperar la memoria de esta gran flota de Felipe II, que lejos de lo que muchos pueden pensar, no fue un desastre hasta que en buena medida llegó a Irlanda. Pero como hablaremos luego, realmente es una gran historia que merece la pena recuperar. De ahí mi agradecimiento, mis primeras palabras de agradecimiento a todos aquellos que han hecho posible que hoy esté aquí. Insisto, para mí es un verdadero privilegio compartir con ustedes esta historia. Pues para empezar, sí me gustaría hacer alguna mención de agradecimiento, sobre todo a todo el equipo del Instituto Cervantes de Dublín, muy especialmente a Francisco Oda, que lamentablemente por el trágico atentado en Manchester no puede estar aquí hoy con nosotros, pero también por su interés, por su pasión en recuperar esta historia, quería hacer este apunte porque creo que se lo merece. Indudablemente también mi agradecimiento a la Embajada Española en la capital, a su embajador, también por su pasión a la hora de recuperar la memoria de la felicísima Armada en esta maravillosa isla. Y a su vez, al estar hoy aquí, se lo decía antes, cuando me he reencontrado con él, para mí es un privilegio doble estar aquí hoy y compartir sobre todo espacio desde mi perspectiva de escritor, de periodista, que ha seguido con emoción la fascinación por la Armada española, la Gran Armada en Irlanda, sino porque lo haré sobre todo junto a Fionbarr Moore, que, como ha definido perfectamente el embajador, es una figura ineludible para entender la arqueología subacuática en Irlanda. Es un enamorado, evidentemente, de esa historia, es un pozo de sabiduría, especialmente sobre el naufragio en Streedagh, en Sligo, de la Juliana y de otras naves. Y por tanto, como le decía, pues para mí el volver a reencontrarme con él es de alguna manera cerrar un círculo, especialmente en esta conferencia. Yo conocí a Fionbarr y también a Carl Brady, que está a su lado, hace 2 años, cuando hizo un reportaje para el diario El País, precisamente alrededor de los cañones que se habían recuperado, del proceso de conservación, el proceso de mimo al que se está sometiendo desde hace 2 años esos impresionantes cañones. Y como digo, el reencuentro con ellos dos hoy, pues para mí es cerrar un círculo, como se lo dije, para mí es muy especial y muy importante estar aquí hoy. Y dicho esto, pido disculpas por no poder hacer esta conferencia en inglés, como hubiera apetecido, pero el dominio de mi idioma no es el mismo que el idioma de los náufragos que llegaron con los barcos de la Armada aquí en Irlanda, así que me he postulado por utilizar el lenguaje de Cervantes, y además, teniendo en cuenta en el marco en el que nos encontramos, pues he preferido hacerlo en mi lengua materna, y de esa manera intentar acercarles también un poquito a la sonoridad de lo que seguro que muchos irlandeses de hace más de 4 siglos escucharon por primera vez cuando llegaron los españoles en sus barcos. Haciendo referencia a Cervantes, Miguel de Cervantes, como miles de españoles cuando eran conscientes de que la Gran Armada zarpó de Lisboa hacia un objetivo bien claro, que era conquistar Irlanda, conquistar Inglaterra, quiere decir, cuando vieron partir la mayor y más poderosa combinación jamás reunida por la cristiandad, como dijo Sir John Hawkins, pues Cervantes y miles de españoles solo esperaban un resultado de ese zarpar, la victoria. Gloso unos versos de Cervantes cuando dijo: justa es la empresa y vuestro brazo fuerte, aún de la misma muerte quitar a la victoria de la mano, cuanto más del vicioso luterano. Esas eran algunas de las impresiones que Cervantes y otros españoles tenían de esa gran flota, esos más de 130 barcos, 30.000 hombres que con el apoyo divino que daban muy por hecho, pues solo quedaba vencer, invadir Inglaterra y deponer a Isabel I. Ese era el gran objetivo de la flota. Sin embargo, un halo funesto pululó desde el principio alrededor de la flota de Felipe II, durante sobre todo su periplo por el Canal de la Mancha y mientras se enfrentaba a los barcos ingleses, hasta que finalmente llegó la trágica batalla de Gravelinas el 8 de agosto de 1588, cuando ahí ya se cristalizó realmente ese halo funesto. Fue entonces, en ese momento decisivo en el que el duque Medina Sidonia debía decidir el futuro de la Armada, la Spanish Armada, que tuvo que escoger su destino, cuando ese halo funesto al que yo hacía referencia se tornó definitivamente en el principio del desastre. Y recuerdo ahora las instrucciones de navegación del duque el día 13 de agosto del año 1588, norte-nordeste, hasta alcanzar los 61 grados y medio, teniendo especial cuidado de no aproximarse a la costa de Irlanda a causa de los peligros que puedan acechar. Es decir, en ese derrotero que ya marcaba Medina Sidonia, ya entre líneas se entreveía el desastre que acabaría con los naufragios en Irlanda. La suerte de la Armada estaba echada desde ese momento, y el escenario de su tragedia marítima y de su tragedia humana también, por qué no decirlo, evidentemente iba a tener la costa oeste de Irlanda como escenario. Y fue aquí, como digo siempre, fue allí, precisamente como digo siempre, algunos de los escenarios naturales más hermosos de la isla, sin duda alguna. Yo he tenido esa suerte de pisar muchos de esos naufragios y contemplar con otros ojos, evidentemente, lo que pudieron ver mis compatriotas cuando llegaron a la costa irlandesa, que realmente tuvieron la mala suerte de ir a naufragar, de ir a morir a algunos de los lugares más hermosos de la isla, y donde se perdieron esos 24 barcos y más de 6.000 hombres perecieron. Y precisamente, como haciendo alusión a lo que decía el embajador, los protagonistas de esta conferencia, al menos por mi parte, quiero que sean esos hombres. Más allá de los cañones, más allá de los grandes números de la Armada, me gustaría que fueran esos hombres. Los que nunca volvieron a España, porque murieron, o los que se quedaron también en la isla, sobrevivieron a los naufragios y también a la caza del hombre, a la que sometió a esos náufragos las tropas inglesas, pues quiero que sean, al menos por mi parte, los protagonistas de mi charla. Así mi objetivo, como digo, por subrayar, no es tanto hacer hincapié en los pormenores, en los números de la gran flota de Felipe II, sino ni en los célebres protagonistas de la historia, pues Medina Sidonia, Leiva, Alonso de Leiva, Drake, Isabel I y Felipe II, evidentemente, sino en esos hombres, en esas biografías que se han diluido en el océano del tiempo, en la desmemoria, de los que nadie se acuerda prácticamente, solo gente extraña como yo, que aún rememora nombres de hace más de 4 siglos, pero que, como les mostraré después, para mí son hombres que son muy reales, han convivido durante mucho tiempo conmigo. Evidentemente no solo nombres de hombres españoles, sino también nombres de hombres y mujeres irlandeses anónimos, que de algún modo enlazaron sus vidas a la suerte también de los náufragos españoles. Preparando la conferencia recordaba, por ejemplo, las mujeres de Galway, como desoladas, cuando vieron algunos de los centenares de náufragos, por ejemplo, del naufragio del Gran Green, partieron de la cárcel para ser ajusticiados y fueron enterrados en el cementerio de Fort Hill en Galway. Esas mujeres desconsoladas hicieron sudarios para enterrar a esos hombres que no conocían, pero a los que se sentían de alguna manera muy cercanos. Y también a líderes irlandeses que, como consecuencia de ayudar a esos náufragos, pues también ligaron su vida y su muerte precisamente por esa ayuda. Brian O'Rourke, Tadhg MacClency, pagaron con su vida precisamente ayudar a náufragos españoles. Y alguien podría preguntar, ¿y la razón de esa elección de nombres anónimos? ¿Por qué? Y yo siempre respondo que es porque precisamente en sus biografías, en su vida o en su muerte es donde yo he encontrado la emoción precisamente para investigar, para luego escribir en el diario El País o hace un par de años en este libro de viajes que escribí sobre los naufragios, he encontrado la motivación precisamente para seguir investigando, para seguir emocionándome por las historias de estos hombres que sin duda alguna experimentaron una experiencia traumática, pero que nos dejaron una gran historia como veremos. Y es precisamente porque ha sido a través de esas historias personales, de sus vivencias, donde yo he encontrado un poquito ese permanente buscar en la historia de la Armada Invencible. Todo se ha dicho de paso, Armada Invencible, ese remoquete de la propaganda inglesa con el que los españoles hicimos nuestro. A mí siempre, yo se lo explico, en Irlanda se hace referencia a Spanish Armada, la felicísima Armada, la gran Armada. Nosotros en España hablamos de la Armada Invencible. Pero bueno, son cosas de nuestro país y de nuestro ADN. Hablando de biografías fascinantes, retazos de la gran historia, a los que he llegado de la mano de lo que yo llamo un poco mi familia irlandesa. Hay algunas imágenes por mostrar de esa familia irlandesa. Son también hombres y mujeres, estos del siglo XXI, apasionados de esta gran historia como yo de la Armada, la Spanish Armada, y ha sido de la mano de ellos que me han mostrado escenarios, historias, sin los cuales yo no habría ni mucho menos haber podido llegar a esas historias, haberlas podido explicar en el diario El País, por ejemplo, y luego, como he comentado también en mi libro, ¿no? Así no puedo más que hacer unos apuntes a cómo no agradecer a algunos de estos personajes, a Marcus O'Marhu, músico célebre aquí en Irlanda, pues que me mostró, por ejemplo, su conocimiento sobre el naufragio de la Trinidad Valencera, o me llevó de la mano al lugar donde en el castillo de Eileach fueron masacrados centenares de supervivientes de ese mercante veneciano. O cómo olvidar a Judith Ironside, una de las primeras personas que yo llegué a Spanish Point buscando, no sé si lo diré bien en gaélico, Tuama na Spaneach, la tumba de los españoles, las piedras blancas que marcaban donde los irlandeses enterraron como pudieron a los centenares de hombres que perdieron la vida en el naufragio del galeón San Marcos. Pues cómo olvidar a Judith Ironside cuando una mañana estaba tomando té con su esposo y le pregunté, ¿usted conoce dónde está Tuama na Spaneach? Y me dijo, cada mañana voy a pasear el perro allí con mis perros, así que si quieres vamos y te lo muestro. O sea, es un ejemplo de estas personas, estos hombres y mujeres apasionados. John Tracy, evidentemente, el alma, el corazón del proyecto San Marcos, quien también me explicó infinidad de historias en Spanish Point. Historiadores como Hiram Morgan de la Universidad de Cork, Francis Kelly, el hombre que más sabe de Francisco de Cuéllar, Eddie O'Gorman, uno de las almas del Celtic Fringe Festival en Grange. No puedo dejar de hacer referencias a ellos, o experiencias, por ejemplo, como pasar los pocos metros que hay entre el islote y tierra firme en Rossclogher, los restos del castillo donde el capitán Francisco de Cuéllar estuvo 17 días con otros 7 soldados españoles enfrentándose a más de 800 soldados ingleses. Es decir, son experiencias que solo de la mano de personajes, de hombres y mujeres irlandeses, yo hubiera podido llegar. Y en ese panteón de nombres, pues, como decía, hay nombres del siglo XXI, pero hay nombres del siglo XVI, del siglo XVII. Y es ahí cuando aparece una biografía, un nombre, uno de esos españoles que, bueno, que la mala suerte, o no, trajo a Irlanda, y que en los últimos 6 años, pues prácticamente podría decir que ha convivido conmigo a diario, con mi mujer y mis 2 hijas. Él ha estado siempre por ahí, y él es el protagonista de una novela histórica que ya he finalizado, y si todo va bien, pues saldrá publicada el próximo año. Y cuando alguien me pregunta eso, ¿qué nombre es ese?, yo siempre hago un silencio dramático y digo, se llamaba Pedro Blanco. Pedro Blanco es un personaje para mí fundamental, y cuando alguien me pregunta eso, ¿qué me ha hecho apasionarme por la Armada Invencible en Irlanda, o qué impulso me ha hecho viajar decenas de veces en los últimos años para pisar los lugares donde pasaron estas historias, yo siempre pues respondo igual, un fantasma, para ser exactos, el fantasma de Pedro Blanco. Eso sí, siempre hago un matiz, que es un magnífico guiño literario, pero que yo espero que obedezca algo de más calado, que es que no atino a saber si fui yo quien descubrió el fantasma de Pedro Blanco o fue él quien me descubrió a mí. Yo la primera vez que me topé con su nombre fue en septiembre del año 2007. Yo hice un reportaje para una revista española, se llama Clio, una revista de divulgación histórica. Fue para cubrir los actos de conmemoración de The Flight of the Eels, la huida de los condes, un episodio importante, clave en la historia del Ulster, en la historia de Irlanda. Y entre todos estos factos, pues fui a un pequeño museo en Letterkenny, había una serie de artefactos de la época, y casi sin darme cuenta, pues deambulando por el pequeño museo, fui a parar delante de un cuadro similar a estos, con los 99 pasajeros de un barco que zarpó de Rathmullan, con la flor y nata de la nobleza gaélica, con Hugh O'Neill, con los O'Donnell, destino a España. Y fue ahí en esa lista donde entre clérigos, soldados, siervos, hombres, mujeres de los 2 grandes clanes, los O'Neill y los O'Donnell, pues me encontré con el pasajero 47. Entre todos los nombres en gaélico descubrí algo que para mí era muy cercano. Pedro Blanco no es muy gaélico, que digamos, así que ahí me topé por primera vez con el fantasma de Pedro Blanco. Evidentemente la curiosidad cuando me topé con ese nombre, desde el principio no iba a hacer el reportaje sobre ese personaje, hizo que empezara a investigar una vez llegado a casa. No hay mucho sobre la historia de Pedro Blanco, apenas 4 datos: náufrago de un barco del que luego hablaremos mucho, superviviente de ese barco, guardaespaldas de Hugh O'Neill. Con eso se quedaban los retazos de la biografía de Pedro Blanco. Pero, claro, para mí las preguntas, y sobre todo cuando como periodista uno nota cuando uno se topa con una historia, y yo tenía la certeza de que me había topado con una gran historia, que merecía la pena investigar más sobre la biografía de Pedro Blanco. Así que es lo que he hecho en los últimos años, seguir el fantasma de Pedro Blanco allí donde he podido. En buena medida, y hacía referencia a una frase que una vez me dijo una escritora española, hoy que estamos en un espacio muy español, muy literario además, Almudena Grandes. Una vez tuve la oportunidad de entrevistarla y me dijo: yo voy por la vida mirando la vida desde la perspectiva, desde los ojos de un escritor, de un novelista. Por eso cuando yo me topé con el fantasma de Pedro Blanco, desde el principio tuve la certeza que yo también quería ver la biografía de ese náufrago poco conocido desde el punto de vista de la literatura. Merecía la pena porque era, insisto, una gran historia. Será una novela que aparecerá el próximo año, y para mí siento que será mi tributo personal, mi compromiso, pues, a la hora de recuperar la historia de este personaje, que creo que merece la pena porque es un personaje anónimo, pero que de su mano nos permite encontrar la gran historia a través de los hombres que modelaron la historia, la leyenda de la Armada Invencible en Irlanda. Y en realidad en este punto al investigar mucho sobre esa biografía de Pedro Blanco, un personaje que, insisto, ya a punto iba a bordo de la Juliana, así que mirad cómo se cierran también los círculos, siempre a través de su biografía y de otros hombres, siempre he tenido la misma certera sensación, de que en todas esas biografías había un punto de épica, de aventura, de algo no narrado todavía, y por tanto yo quería explicarlo de otra manera, quizás, no como evidentemente con la sapiencia, los conocimientos de Fionbarr y de los expertos, pero creo que como una buena historia merecía la pena explicarlo. En realidad también creo que será un buen homenaje para, en Irlanda, esa pervivencia de la Armada, en los ojos marrones, en la piel oscura, en el cabello oscuro de los Black Irish, en esos lugares que están en la toponimia de Irlanda. Será un buen modo también de recuperar esa memoria. Y en este sentido, justo como apuntaba ahora, en esas carambolas de mi búsqueda en las historias de la Armada Invencible, pues me topé con un nombre de hombre, Pedro Blanco, pero era un nombre que luego iba vinculado a un nombre de mujer, la Juliana. Porque evidentemente cuando descubrí que este hombre iba a bordo de la gran nave, que es la protagonista de los últimos años de ese legado de la Armada Invencible, para mí me pareció que eso no tenía precio. Porque aproximarme a la Juliana también es aproximarme a una historia muy cercana para mí, ese gran barco pues con 32 cañones, 860 toneladas, una tripulación de 355 hombres. Más allá de eso, era aproximarse a la historia del origen del barco. Y además el naufragio para mí es el lugar del naufragio es un lugar muy especial, como decía Yeats, al lado del Ben Bulben, allá donde el Ben Bulben se da la mano con el océano. Para mí es un lugar fascinante para aproximarme al final de la Juliana, dicho en catalán, sería el nombre correcto. La Juliana, que por cierto, cuando se descubrieron los cañones en abril-julio del 2015, y yo pude hacer estos reportajes para el diario El País, que por cierto también, como le he dicho a Fionbarr, me gustaría que luego nos explique algunos de los secretos, que en su día ya me dijo que me explicaría, que aún no podía, como el cañón turco que se encontró. Pues desde el primer momento, cuando tuve la certeza de que la Juliana, mi personaje de mi novela, estaba a bordo de la Juliana, para mí fue algo muy cercano, porque yo vivo a apenas 50 kilómetros del lugar donde se construyó la Juliana, Mataró. En los libros de historia la Juliana aparecía muchas veces como un barco de Sicilia, y demonios, cuando yo sabía que era de Mataró, cuando aparecieron los cañones, pues por eso escribí aquel reportaje en El País, porque merecía la pena recuperar la historia verdadera de ese barco, además para mí tan cercano. Muy interesante la historia de la Juliana, sus pormenores, tampoco quiero ahondar mucho más, no sé cómo voy de tiempo, tenemos 20 minutos, yo podría estar mucho rato hablando, pero quiero ser fiel al tiempo asignado. Pero, por ejemplo, una de esas maravillas que a mí me ha permitido seguir la estela de la Armada Invencible es conocer a gente fascinante, más allá de los irlandeses y mujeres irlandeses y hombres irlandeses que me han llevado de la mano esos paisajes, a esas historias. También en Cataluña, en España, he conocido a gente fascinante. Por ejemplo, yo tuve la oportunidad de entrevistar al historiador de Mataró, Antoni Martí Coll, hace apenas un año y pico, que falleció, y él me explicaba cosas fascinantes de la Juliana. Por ejemplo, su mujer era descendiente del propietario y capitán de la Juliana, Joan Palau, un personaje también, Joan Arnau Palau, para ser exacto, un personaje poco conocido, pero que fue el artífice de la construcción de esta gran nave. Detalles tan fascinantes como el detalle que aparece en un documento en el archivo de la Corona de Aragón, donde dice que Palau promete y se obliga a pagar por la fabricación de la nave 300 libras barcelonesas. Son detalles maravillosos de un barco que tuvo la mala fortuna de ir a naufragar en Irlanda. Más detalles, no quiero tampoco ahondar mucho más, luego si acaso incluso con las preguntas creo que será interesante, pero una cuestión muy interesante, por ejemplo, son los cañones, el artífice de los cañones, Doria Gioardi, uno de los maestros, constructores, creadores, artesanos del siglo XVI en Génova, pues que con esa D que daba fe de su obra en los cañones. Fionbarr luego nos explicará muchas más cosas sobre este tema. En realidad, volviendo un poco a lo que comentaba antes de Pedro Blanco, la biografía que a mí me ha hecho llegar a esta historia de la Gran Armada, recuerdo perfectamente el día que leí uno de los primeros documentos en los que dije, realmente esto es una gran historia. Fue en la Royal Irish Academy, muy cerca de aquí. Pude leer un artículo, hacía referencia a una de las últimas cartas que Hugh O'Neill escribe desde Roma en el año 1616, cuando está en Roma. Le escribe una carta a Felipe III, el rey español, y le dice, en esa carta, relata las vicisitudes que llevaron al soldado, que hasta ese momento había sido su secretario, guardaespaldas, asistente, hasta Roma, con donde él estaba. Él hace un pequeño resumen de su currículum de armas, por ejemplo, su buen papel en la guerra de los 9 años, en algunas de las batallas decisivas. Y también es interesante cómo hacer referencia a algunos de esos nombres de hombres que junto a Pedro Blanco estuvieron junto a O'Neill, supervivientes todos de los naufragios de Streedagh Strand. Nombres, insisto, de hace 4 siglos, pero que para mí han sido muy cercanos y lo siguen siendo. Alonso Díaz de Carmona, Francisco de Aguilar, Bartolomé Rodríguez, Juan de la Cruz, Juan Pérez de Cebada, Antón Fernández y Juan de Montesinos. En el año 1596 estos hombres aún estaban con Hugh O'Neill y todos eran supervivientes de los naufragios de Streedagh Strand. Para no andar mucho más, solo quiero hacer referencia a uno de los últimos episodios de la biografía de Pedro Blanco. Es el sitio de Kinsale, cuando España el rey envía más de 3.000 soldados para ayudar a los irlandeses. De su puño y letra Hugh O'Neill dice: teniendo el enemigo cercado a don Juan del Águila, que llegó a Irlanda con 3.000 soldados, no me podía fiar de ninguna persona ni tampoco hallar quien se atreviese a pasar con mis letras por el ejército enemigo. Si no es por él, que como tan grande soldado, pasando de noche con mucho trabajo por encima de las trincheras, llegó a la ciudad sitiada, dio mis cartas y trajo sus respuestas con mucha fidelidad y cuidado. Así era Pedro Blanco. Era un hombre valiente, de arrestos, un hombre de acción. Y como dice Hugh O'Neill, solo en él podía confiar. Aunque la última demostración de fidelidad de Pedro Blanco fue zarpar con su señor, como hemos dicho, o he apuntado, en el año 1607, en ese barco, en esos 99 tripulantes que iban a bordo de ese barco hacia un exilio forzado, hacia España, concretamente cuando zarpan de Rathmullan, en el norte de la isla. A bordo de ese barco pues iba la florinata, como decía, de la nobleza del Ulster, los O'Neill, los O'Donnell, los condes de Tyrone y Tyrconnell respectivamente. Y justo en esa misiva que enviaba Hugh O'Neill al rey, decía de Pedro Blanco, le pedía al rey, de hecho, que le diera una paga, porque estaba, como decía, ahora que empieza a hacerse viejo y tiene mujer e hijos en Irlanda, sin nadie que lo rescate de las manos de los enemigos. Yo siempre que pienso en estas palabras me viene a la mente un cuadro. En el año 1958 el pintor Thomas Ryan pintó The Departure of O'Neill Out of Ireland, una gran obra de gran formato, en la que reflejó la emoción y el dramatismo de la huida forzosa de O'Neill de sus territorios. Había alguna imagen para mostrar el cuadro, no sé si es factible, y si no, pues luego lo buscamos en Wikipedia, lo vemos. Es un cuadro magnífico que retrata esa escena, solo por un detalle, porque en ese cuadro hay un dominico que bendice a O'Neill, ese O'Neill envejecido que da la vuelta en una última mirada a su tierra, y solo cuando veo ese cuadro yo veo una escena muy concreta, a mano izquierda al lado del dominico. Ni que sea, veremos esa imagen. Es la carpeta 4. Bueno, eso es la playa de Streedagh Strand. No, es la carpeta 4, la última. Bueno, y si no, no te preocupes, ¿eh? Bueno, ahora de golpe van a ver toda la familia irlandesa, todos los escenarios, Rosclogger, Trinidad Valencera, Marca Somorjú. Bueno, en cualquier caso, en ese cuadro, no te preocupes. En ese cuadro hay una escena muy concreta. Se ve a una mujer llorando con un bebé en los brazos y a su lado un hombre con gesto adusto, marcial, barba cerrada. Yo cuando veo esa escena siempre veo a Pedro Blanco despidiéndose de su mujer e hijos que va a dejar entre, como decía O'Neill, entre luteranos, entre enemigos. Siempre pienso que esa última escena es la partida de Pedro Blanco hacia cumpliendo con su labor de ir fielmente de la mano de su Señor a Roma, a España o al infierno, allá donde finalmente acabara este personaje. Y por eso siempre pienso que yo, humilde buscador de historias, cuando veo esa imagen, pues veo un poco a ese Odiseo hispano despidiéndose de su particular Penélope y de su Telémaco, y siempre me acuerdo de unos versos que en Ítaca hacen referencia a eso. Dice: mi pobre Ítaca, me alejo de ti llevándome tan solo el cuerpo, porque mis pensamientos se quedan atrás, dice esa canción tradicional de la isla griega. Yo supongo que algo así debió pensar Pedro Blanco cuando se despidió de su mujer e hijos para seguir a su Señor. En realidad, recordando esa primera vez en la que en la Royal Irish Academia leí ese documento en el que me hizo encontrarme por primera vez con el fantasma de Pedro Blanco, yo tuve la sensación, quizás algo literario, no lo niego, de que el fantasma de Pedro Blanco deambuló un poco por la moqueta bermeja de esa institución histórica tan importante en Dublín. Yo solo espero que hoy, con este primer apunte que yo he hecho sobre este personaje, pues su recuerdo, su fantasma, pues haya hoy caminado un poquito por el parquet del Instituto Cervantes, y sobre todo que les haya acercado y que les haya emocionado un poco la historia de este hombre anónimo que, como muchos otros, pues escribieron una historia, una gran historia, que, insisto, creo que es el gran valor de la Armada Invencible o de la Spanish Armada. Es una historia aún con muchos capítulos por explicar, y yo pues espero explicar alguno más. Muchas gracias. Gracias.
Sort of trip through the names and the people associated with the Armada and the places that David painted an amazing picture without pictures. So I'll try and paint a picture with pictures, so hopefully that'll get me through the evening. Just to say thanks to Raphael. I see he's here, Raphael Soriano, the Deputy Head of Mission here, and the Ambassador, and the Institute for the invitation to give this talk here this evening with David. As I said, as time is short, I'll get straight to the subject matter, and so there hopefully will be time for questions afterwards. Just to paint a brief overview, and David has more or less given a lot of detail in terms of the origin and the significance of the Armada. And as he said, and as is probably generally well known because it's an amazing story, a lot of people know it. In the 16th century, Europe was experiencing great changes against the background of the Reformation and the opening up of the New World to colonization. I have a yoke in my pocket here that will help me move on fast, I hope. Yeah. So let me see now, which way does it go? To move it forward. Oh no, it doesn't seem to be responding. Yeah, maybe I've turned it off or something. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, that'll move everything. Yeah, great. So, oops, there we go. Yeah. So, as in the 16th century, as I said, Europe was experiencing great changes against the background of the Reformation, the opening up of New World, the colonization, religious wars, trade wars, and war in the face of colonial expansion. Something experienced at an acute level in Ireland at that time. I needn't remind those of us who did our history in school about that, with always the hope of Spanish intervention to save us, and the Spanish ships around the deep, my dark Rosaline, etc., etc. So anyway, that's the background, if you like. Philip II of Spain married Mary, daughter of Henry VIII, in 1554. In 1556, Philip succeeded to the Spanish throne. 1558, Elizabeth succeeds to the English throne on the death of the Catholic Mary, the wife of Philip. Subsequent to this, there were growing tensions between England and Spain over privateers attacking Spanish merchant vessels in the high seas, and Spain's foothold in the Netherlands. And as Dr. Declan Downey has pointed out at a number of lectures I've been to, there were also apparently Calvinist rebels supported by Elizabeth in the Netherlands, not too far from English shores, and also apparently, if I'm remembering Declan right, strong support for the activity of Barbary pirates, if I'm not mistaken. So there was traditionally the death of Mary Queen, the execution of Mary Queen of Scots for involvement in a plot to overthrow Queen Elizabeth has been put forward as one of the major reasons behind the Armada moving against England. But as Declan has pointed out, there were other reasons and a wider context to what was going on, which is absolutely fascinating. But and prior to this, as again, quoting from the background that Declan has painted on this, Francis Drake, raiding Cartagena in 1586, and in 1587 threatening Compostela. So much more than Mary Queen of Scots going on, we are now informed. But anyway, that map just shows you the divide in Europe at the time as things were shaping up. And the Geraldines were lobbying Spain and supportive of an armada against England, and the Pope as well was supportive of such a move. So Spain builds an armada to invade England with the backing of the Pope in the hope that the Reformation can be overthrown and a Catholic monarch sit once again on the English throne. So, and on July the 29th, the armada sails from La Coruña, having moved up from Lisbon shortly before that. As David pointed out, 130 ships, 20,000 soldiers and 8,000 sailors, and against an English fleet of 197 ships. So between the 29th and the 30th of July, it was spotted off the Cornish coast. Between August the 3rd and 4th, off the Isle of Wight. You can just see the moving of the Armada up here off the southeast of England. And then and a number of skirmishes between the English fleet and the Spanish fleet until August the 6th, when the Armada anchored off Calais to rendezvous with the Duke of Parma and the land army of the Spanish that was supposed to help with the invasion of England, but Parma hadn't arrived there. So by August the 7th, the English let loose fire ships among the Spanish. The Spanish were somehow taken by surprise by this. There was also a fear that the great sort of fire ship and expert in incendiary devices, Federico Gambelli, the feared fire burner of Antwerp, was responsible for these ships, and they'd all be blown to Kingdom Come, but he was nowhere near that because he was involved in building a boom at Gravesend on the Thames, possibly anticipating greater success for the Armada than actually transpired. But anyway, that was all at, sorry, go back now, I've gone too far. Oh, there we are, yes, yeah. So the Spanish scattered, cutting anchors to get away fast, and there was a further battle off Gravelines, which saw 6 Spanish ships lost, and the Armada driven north by the winds, which drove them on. So you can further up the east coast of England. They could have turned back, but didn't, on the orders of the Duke of Medina Sidonia, whose descendant was here last year talking about that. And so they moved around by Scotland, between the Orkneys and the Shetlands, around by Scotland onto the coast of Ireland, and by September the 4th, they had reached the north coast of Ireland. So just take a small drop of water. Check my time. So yeah, around by Scotland and Ireland by the 4th of September. There was an Irish element to it, as Declan again, Downey and Harlan Morgan, others have pointed out. There were 200 Irish, including the son of the Earl of Desmond, originally on the ship, and many Irish on that Spanish campaign. So by September the 20th, if I've got my pointer, yeah, they were around off the west coast of Ireland, a number of the ships. You can see just coming, and the Duke of Medina Sidonia said, be careful of the west coast of Ireland and to stay clear of it, at least stay 300 miles west of it. But some of the ships drifted close to shore, some maybe to reprovision, others because they didn't understand the currents, and the and longitude wasn't clearly understood at that particular time. So by September the 21st, the storms had blown them onto Streedagh Strand, where the 3 ships were wrecked at La Giuliana, the Santa Maria de Vison, and the Lavia Venetiana. So, it was well known at the time that ships had gone down, and a number of maps were made shortly after that on the instructions of the Governor of Connacht, Richard Bingham. And this map in 1589, literally a year later, shows 3 Spanish ships behind Inishmurray, which is visible from Streedagh Strand and where the 3 ships went down. So, just to say, off the north coast, we know about 6, as I said. Here we have about 130 ships set out, 26 ships lost around the coast of Ireland, and so far only 6 have been identified. 3 of these in Streedagh, and others tentatively, some general information on their possible location, and then others just from historical accounts, we've a rough idea where they went down. But the Girona off Antrim, the Trinidad Valnacera off Donegal, the 3 Armada shipwrecks at Streedagh, and then you've got to go down to Kerry to the Santa Maria del Rosa in Blasket Sound. And they're the ones that have been investigated and identified to date. So that's another map from 1589 showing 3 wrecks again, 3 ships at Streedagh. So it was known historically ever that they were there. And there was great concern among the English that there was either another fleet of ships going to take Ireland at the same time as the Armada, or just a fear that the Spanish might incite revolt in Ireland. So, and this wasn't long after the Desmond Rebellion as well. So there was if you like, a reign of terror afoot to try and keep the natives at bay, as it were. And the Armada was contributing to the panic that ensued in that regard. So on to Streedagh itself, Streedagh Bay, Grange, County Sligo. The wrecks that went down there, the Lavia, Santa Maria de Vison, and La Giuliana. And David mentioned the amazing account by Francisco de Cuellar, who was on board the Lavia, having lost his commission, if you like, having been captain of an earlier of a ship that had broken ranks with the fleet as it went around the coast. But an amazing account of the wrecking at Streedagh. And so we know that the Lavia, in which he was on, the Santa Maria de Vison, was a ship from Dubrovnik, and La Giuliana from Barcelona, and the Lavia Venetiana from Venice. So these were all part of what was known as the Levant Squadron, the East Mediterranean Squadron of the Armada, which was, and they were commandeered by Philip II and kitted out for the Armada. Under the command of Don Martin de Bertondona, and as I said, wrecked in Streedagh on 21st of September. And as David has pointed out again, over 1,000 people died between the 3 ships. 300 survived, and possibly 140 more or so put to death by the sword when they reached land. So it was a grim period in time for those Armada survivors, never mind those who drowned. This is some information that has been gathered over the years that the Underwater Unit, has been monitoring the site mainly since 1999 when we were first set up, but and the department has dealt with that site over the years. But so information has been gathered slowly over the years, and this is mostly magnetic anomalies and 3 concentrations of wreck material. This is thought to be the Lavia, and because a gun from the Alberghetti foundry in Venice is found on that spot. This is probably the Santa Maria de Vison, it's thought, but we've no hard evidence of that. And then the Giuliana site is now well documented. La Giuliana, as David said, built in Barcelona. It's amazing to think that he actually met a descendant of the Pilo family recently, a direct descendant of the family that owned and commissioned the La Giuliana. Originally named Santa Maria, Santiago, Santa Clara, the Paolo family, originally 40 pieces of cannon, and as I said, requisitioned 3 times involved in some of the greatest sort of events, if you like, of the period. At the 1570, it was built, 1571, at the Battle of Lepanto, where it was a supply ship. And then at Lisbon, and the Lisbon campaign in 1580, it was commandeered again, and again for the Azores in 1583, when Spain finally annexed the Azores and finally completed the conquest of the Portuguese Empire. And then eventually, on the Armada campaign in 1588. 4 times it was commandeered. 4 times the Paulo family had to give up their ship, which was a merchant vessel trading between Spain and Sicily at the time. This is probably what it might have looked like. This is a reconstruction, if you like, drawing done by Wheatley and Howard from various based on various engravings. So a large merchant vessel, 4-masted, with this with a high forecastle, this kind of beak-like projection out the back, which is typical of those Levantine ships. You can see the gun ports along the side, and if you like, the flags and the embellishments, if you like, were probably put on when it was commandeered as part of the Armada. So it would have been a colourful and imposing sight originally. And you can see the rudder there projecting down from the back of the ship, and there's a rudder from the Juliana site about 13 metres in length, so it gives you a sense of the scale of it. It's probably about 35 metres long by best part of 10 metres wide, and maybe up to 15 metres high at its highest, maybe higher, up to 20 at this point. So an imposing vessel, well, but not necessarily well suited for the storms and conditions off the west coast of Ireland. So 30 years ago, a group of English divers, Alan King and Harry Chapman, and subsequently aided by Stephen Birch and Doug McElvogue, carried out a survey at Streedagh based on, obviously, documentary research and knowing there must be information there hidden under the sands. And either through excavation or through a freak storm, we're not sure, they uncovered some material, including 4 cannons actually, at the Juliana site and 1 at the Labia site. And plus this rudder, and plus, so this is a plan that they did at the time of, well, subsequent to that, as part of a report they did on what they found at the Juliana site. And you see a large cannon under the rudder here, and these 3 cannons as well, and a large, and some carriage wheels, etc. So this led to a protracted court case because, while there wasn't protection for shipwrecks at the time under the legislation in Ireland, the state felt that they had importance as part of the state's heritage. So they challenged the divers who were trying to claim salvage rights in the courts, and it led to High Court, Supreme Court proceedings, which eventually were resolved in only recently in 2006 when a settlement was reached with the divers, because it was felt by Justice Barr, who died last year, that while this had passed into the realm of heritage legislation, out of the realm of salvage law, the work they had done had highlighted the importance of this part of our heritage, and the state had not really measured up in terms of dealing with it. So in a way, he felt they'd done the state some service, so they should be rewarded, which they were, but it took until 2006 before that could be finally resolved. So that's basically just summarising what happened there. It ultimately, as an indirect consequence, the National Monuments Act was strengthened in 1987 to cover wrecks over 100 years old and to regulate activities on them. And ultimately, in a way, the Underwater Unit that I'm involved with now is probably a direct result of that court case and their finding at Streedagh over 30 years ago. So it was kind of ironic to be back there doing the job exactly 30 years later. We've monitored the site, as I said, over the years, picking up stray finds on the beach. For example, this steel yard was just sitting there on one occasion, base of a candlestick, some pottery of this period, and more projecting out, sticking out of the sands. So over the years, monitoring it, and then in more recent years, information from the Grange Armada Development Association that material had been washed up as a result of recent storms, and led to our putting it down on our list of sites to inspect. And also because things have been resolved in terms of the legalities that had sort of, if you like, frozen it for years, we were able to go back and do further searches and see what the condition was and position was now. Also, we licensed Sligo Sparkle Club to do some reconnaissance in advance of our own inspections, and they were very supportive as well. So we went up there in 2015, April, did some sonar surveys on the wreck sites, and over with a number of anomalies. And my colleague Carl Brady here had maybe 50, 60 different references to possibilities on the seabed in that area, and we were going to sort of work through them, a process of elimination. Hopefully we'd identify one or two wrecks. We first of all moved over the Lavia site, and then the Santa Maria de Vison, then ultimately onto Giuliana site. And straight away, you could see carriage field possibly here, a bit of scouring here, but these guns, you could see these guns projecting out of the sand. So we knew we had something. And our diver, we had a dive team with us. It was April 2015, and one of our divers, Juliana O'Donoghue, was considered, she dived on Juliana, being the first person to dive on it, which she did, and she came down straight down on a cannon, and that sort of set things in motion. So this is what we were looking at the time, April 2015. One cannon fairly eroded, this one with a very eroded figure on it, and these ones buried in the sand. So we were looking at which seemed to be in better condition. So it looked like some had been exposed again and again over the years, and others had been buried maybe for centuries, and only occasionally exposed, if ever. So we also identified an anchor on the site with totally exposed, spread of cannonballs, literally probably hundreds of cannonballs, carriage wheels just jutting out of the sand, and possibly part of a gun carriage. So things were looking good. We had something definitely that needed to be addressed, especially the cannons, because they are precious artifacts in their own right, especially ones that are associated with that period. And that just gives you a sense of the location. Ben Bulben in the background, beautiful setting for some great tragedies, if you like, in history. The boys here marking some of the location of the site, so not far from shore. And partly in a fairly dynamic area, surf zone, if you like, and it had probably protected the site from people who might interfere with them, because no one suspected they were that close to shore, and we hadn't got that information really prior to that. Reported back to Dublin, word went right up to ministerial level because funds had to be made available for us to go back and do further work. And we informed the Spanish embassy. Rafael Soriano came along and was very supportive of what we were trying to do. And Minister Humphreys gave the nod for funds for us to go back and do more work. So back we went. We did a brief survey in June, recovered two guns. We had a support vessel. We were testing out the logistics, how we go about it, how we carry out our research. And then we got to go ahead to go back for the best part of a month in July of 2015 and to carry out more detailed survey. So commenced detailed survey and recording. This is Rex Bangerter, who's one of the most expert underwater surveyors probably in Europe, I'd say, able to stand up there and draw as if he's drawing on land, and that's no mean feat given the currents that are there. So also excavation around the guns in order to get record any information that might be incidental to that, and to help and the recovery process. A plan done initially, and further plans have been done since. But you can see about five cannons here, carriage wheels, part of the structural elements of the ship as well appearing. And you can see the stones around some of the guns here, and you can imagine in storms and bad weather that the erosion possibilities there are high, and the possible damage to the wrecks or to the cannons consequentially sort of very serious. David mentioned the cauldron as well that we took up, and so did the ambassador, and this is it. This was just sitting there peeping out of the sand as well. It's what normally they term a copper kettle, maybe used for boiling water or for storing pitch and tar. The actual pitch used for repairing rigging and ropes was still in the bottom of this particular copper kettle or cauldron. You can just see some of the carriage wheels there that were exposed at the time, and ultimately we identified 9 carriage wheels and recovered one of the smaller ones. The larger gun carriage wheels would have been for the bigger siege guns, and the demi-cannons maybe for the smaller ones. And they all would have been stored in the whole of Juliana, along with the cannonballs and any other armaments that they might need for their campaign. We lifted one carriage wheel. It's a delicate operation. We had to scaffold it, and then because it's wood and iron composite, it could easily fall apart. And you can see a cannonball, a stone cannonball, adhering to it here, because they would have been stored in the hold as well. So this just gives you a sense of how we went about it. We hadn't actually done this kind of work before. We'd done a lot of excavation, but in order to recover the guns, they're quite heavy, some of them up to 1 ton in weight. And so it's not something a diver can lift, and airbags wouldn't be really that suitable. So Rob Marsden, who was our dive supervisor, came up with a system of a pontoon, a weighted pontoon on the surface made from airbags, acting as a counterweight, a pulley system, and then we'd excavate under, strap the guns, and then you'd winch them up very, very gently and with no strain at all. It worked like a dream, so we were delighted with that. So because we thought initially 5, we ended up lifting 9 guns. So that's just to give you an overview of what we were dealing with there. By the time we'd finished at the end of July, we had, David again mentioned the possible Arabic gun, and more of that anon, as I say. And then, interesting, some of the guns, as I said, the date of 1570 is on each one. A saint very often depicted on them, especially the ones from Barcelona that would have been on the boat, or the ship when it was built in 1570, the date 1570 on them, and those particular ones with the D for Giordi di Orini, which is the gun founder from Genoa who made these guns. So the St. Petrona, St. Giovanni, St. John the Baptist, and the St. Rocco, and St. Hilaria, and San Bastiano, or St. Sebastian, they were all made in Genoa by the one foundry in 1570 and on the boat originally. So they would have been at Lepanto, they would have been in Terceira, they would have been in Lisbon, and ultimately they were in off the west coast of Ireland. The other, the St. Peter demi-cannon, the Sicilian, it was made in Sicily by Frederica Mussara, a cannon maker of mid-16th century date. And we think we've others of that particular vintage there as well. So this just gives you more visual sort of connection with these amazing artifacts. The Saint Rocco and his just before I go on, there's a range of guns there, pedreros or petrieres or demi-cannons, and then there's we have sakers as well, or mohanis as they are in Italian, and they're just a different guns, a range of guns that would have been on the ship. So this is one that depicts Saint Rocco and his dog, who was very much venerated in the Mediterranean area in the 15th and 16th centuries. It's a 14th century saint associated with plague, and there's Saint Rocco and his dog. You have Saint Sebastian on another one, and then you have here Saint John the Baptist and Saint Hilaria, who's a 4th century martyr. So I just. Just to make sure I'm keeping straight, as I say. So that's just a close-up then of the St. Rocco one. And he's traditionally the patron saint of infectious diseases, particularly the plague, and also referred to St. Roch. Another attribution placed him patron saint of those who are falsely accused. And his dog is shown holding a loaf of bread in his mouth. And he's a saint of the, as I said, of the 14th century. So you can see the little dog giving him the gift of the loaf of bread. So, and the detail is just incredible. Also, his name is there, Rocco, the date of manufacture, and the manufacturer's initials also on the gun as well. Saint Matrona, this was one of the first ones we found back in April 2015. Saint Matrona is venerated in Barcelona very much. Saint Matrona was another early martyr. She was martyred in the 4th century as well. She's carrying a cross and a ship. Sorry, just oops. See. So, yeah, she's carrying a cross and a ship, and Saint Matrona written under it, and the year 1570, and there was a crest there as well. So again, another superbly preserved gun, and clear confirmation that we were dealing with a ship of with the Juliana, because of the direct connection with Barcelona. One of the guns found 30 years earlier also was Saint Severo, a 4th century bishop of Barcelona, and which indicated that it probably was the Juliana, and this absolutely confirms it. This one I mentioned, the gun with St. Peter depicted on it, made in Sicily by Mussara, probably in the 16th century. probably put on the ship in Sicily when it was commandeered for the Armada. And you can see the detail on it. It was first identified 30 years ago, and it was thought it was St. Barbara. In fact, it's St. Peter. Beautifully, these beautiful lifting dolphins and beautiful decoration on it. These St. Peter looking heavenward with the keys to the kingdom in his hand, as depicted in any painting or a statue or image of the period, very much in that tradition. The discoveries themselves generated a lot of interest locally. People had known about this story for a long time, and especially for 30 years since they were first identified. And we stored all our guns offshore before we brought them in, and then we brought them in over 2 days. And each morning at about 7 o'clock, there must have been a couple of hundred people on the pier, trying to, in a way, connecting with history and touching history, which is what it exactly was. When you see the wreck on the seabed, the cannons scattered, the structural elements of the wreck, the cannonballs scattered, and then you read Francisco de Cuellar's account, you're almost back there with him, because the wrecking process he describes is exactly what you're looking at today on the seabed, or what we've recorded, if you like, since then. The material has now gone to the National Museum in Collins Barracks. The Director of the National Museum, Ryan LaFlyn, has provided facilities there for their ongoing conservation. Hannah Power, who's doing the conservation work there, mainly they're being kept in water, the salts and other toxins leaching out of them. They're being cleaned in every so often and then filled again, and it takes about 2 years for that process. And little things are appearing, that are interesting, little nicks on the guns that might be the gunners' tallies, if you like, and other small little details that we've noticed that help identify their origins. Hannah's overseen by Karina Morton, who's the head of Conservation Museum, and she was with us up at Streedagh when we were doing the recoveries there. Back to the Turkish cannon that David mentioned there. It was the first one we came across. Well, there were 3 in all in the first dive, but this one was upside down on the. Oops, I keep doing that. Oh yeah, there we go. No, yeah, this one was. Oh God! Oh, I've gone too far, have I? Yeah, go back now. Sorry about this. There aren't too many. Hopefully, nearly there. Nearly there anyway. So, oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, the Turkish cannon was upside down, and as we were taking it out of the, bringing it on shore for transport to Dublin, we looked under it and spotted this clear Turkish inscription, which was very interesting, and we had it translated in the Chester Beatty Library, and it seems to read Amel El Muallim Mustafa, made by Master Mustafa, and Mustafa is a common name. Even Kemal Ataturk was Mustafa, so it's in Turkey to this day nearly. But the thing is, there were gun makers of that name in Constantinople or Istanbul at the time, and there's every possibility that this was taken as a prize at the Battle of Lepanto in 1571, the first occasion when the Juliana was commandeered, and was with it again on probably all the other campaigns until it ended up again off the coast of Sligo. The depiction of saints, if you like, on the other cannons gives you an idea of the conviction the sailors had and the belief they had in the power of the saints, especially the martyrs, maybe to get them through the campaigns that they were waging. And that seemed to go fine for the Juliana until it hit the west coast of Ireland, and then they probably evoked the wrong saints. Maybe St. Brendan might have helped them had they been there. So anyway, not to dwell too long on it, one of the guns, we just noticed a small bit of decoration on it in the cleaning process, which is very similar to that on the Sicilian gun, so it's probably another Sicilian gun, and by Musara. And another one that's already in the National Museum has the same decoration on it, so again, probably Musara, this little Pedrero. And we've been doing further recording, just applying whatever techniques we can, photogrammetry, and just simple measured survey. We have to go back and do more detailed survey. We've had to do a slinging course in order to be allowed to lift the guns out of their tanks and to examine them more detail. So we're just about to embark on that. And that's down to when the conservators can allow us access. But the conservation is ongoing, which is the main thing. And so that's basically it. What remains on the site? Well, we've the 2 anchors that we left there behind us. There could be up to 60 more guns because between the 3 ships that were down there were at least 75 guns. We don't know how many were salvaged at the time, obviously, but there could be more. Cannonballs. The wreck itself reveals itself every so often. A lot more information to be gathered than that. And the carriage wheels, we left 8 behind us. There could be a lot more. So that's basically it in brief. Just thanks to Carl Brady and Connie Keller, who were my collaborators on the job up in Streedagh, and to the National Museum conservators, and to Eddie O'Gorman of Grange Armada Development Association, and so on, the Sligo Slapping Club, and obviously the Spanish Embassy for their support, and for all who helped us on the project. Thank you very much. Oh, by the way, just maybe if it's, do you want to show a bit of video of that? Just. Oh yeah, before I go, if I could just ask my colleague Carl Brady just to run a little bit of video in the background, showing the and I can tell you what's happening, but I think you'll get a good idea of it anyway. It's just showing the recovery of 2 of the guns. So I don't think I really need to explain anything. It'll be self-explanatory. The straps we had are the same as the Spanish flag, just for your information. So and that was just the system of lifting the guns. Yeah, that's it.
So thank you very much. And well, I think that all of us, we have a fantastic sensation of having on the same story 2 completely different perceptions, but then all together make much more fascinating the story. On one side, we have our Indiana Jones, and even that I would prefer. You're the son, great. I would prefer to change now, because after what I've seen, especially in details and the accuracy and the details, it looks like the detectives, they do some sort of forensics from the short past, and you do a forensic from the long past, isn't it? A remote past. Yeah. So it's like a detective, a police research to know who was there. So meanwhile, you work on the details and you try to put them together. On the other side, we have the bit trying to recreate ghosts and spells walking in the corridor. So I think both things combine very, very well. But the most important thing is that, again, I suppose that all of you, you will agree with me that for a certain generation, I don't know the young people, but we'll have to work on that maybe. But for a certain generation, I suppose that certain books, like the Treasure Islands, they've been associating us with all the legend, romanticism, and a spirit of adventure on pirates, boats, and this is a consequence that create already a kind of sensitivity for this kind of subjects. And later on, I think that this story is really a romantic one for many reasons, and will keep us out nowadays continuing the same. I always insist, and I like to, before opening the floor, to take in consideration that for our culture, I think that most of the cultural elements, and we've been talking with my colleagues and with Rafael Soriano, we've been talking many times about that El Camino and the Armada and the Camino, they are two cultural items, that they are not only cultural ones, but they are anthropological phenomena, because they transcend what is the religious or political or cultural side, becomes something much bigger and recreates the empathy between Irish people and Spanish people. And before opening the floor, I want to thank you, especially because I've been told, but I could not forget Eddie O'Gorman and all the friends of Sligo for being here, Cadmina Foggia. And for, at the same time, I wanted to thank the president of our friend from the Suffolk Protocol from Foreign Affairs, Sean Maguire, that we hope that you will be very, very soon in Spain, taking very high responsibility. So now, please, I ask the audience, it's up to you. First question, who would be the first? Sir. For whom, please? For whom?
One for David, one for Fionbarr. David first. Can we expect an English translation of Los Confins de Hibernia?
Sorry. Espero.
Can we?
Yo lo espero.
Can we?
I hope.
Oh, you hope.
Yes.
Oh, yes, right. Okay. Fionbarr, you mentioned the gun carriage wheels several times. Is it possible that they loaded them on land-based carriages, not on the small shipboard ones?
Yeah, well.
Because it would have made them very difficult to reload inboard.
Oh yeah, no, they would have stored the wheels in the hold. They wouldn't have used them on the ship. They'd have used smaller.
So, did you find any of the small wheels?
No, not yet, but we might, But,
yeah, because some writers have suggested that they were loaded with the land wheels and became very difficult.
Yeah, well, I'd be surprised, but I mean, it's open to question, all right, because we don't have any evidence for any other kind of wheels on the wreck.
Yeah.
So, but then we've only got slim evidence for gun carriages at all. We have there is one, but it's more than likely they would have been assembled on land, especially the larger ones. Anyway, we have smaller carriage. Oh, sorry, we smaller. The smaller carriage wheels are about 1 metre in diameter. And it's possible they might have been used on board the ship, but we have larger carriage wheels that are probably up to 2 metres in diameter.
But you haven't found any of the smaller ones, no?
Nothing smaller than that, no. But even the ones that are 1 metre in diameter, they'd have been some sort of weight, and they'd been incredibly awkward, I imagine, on deck. So I suspect they knew what they were at, and I doubt if they'd been that reckless. I don't know, but maybe that's why. But one thing, if you read the Queller's account and the cannonballs and the carriage wheels, I think, are crashing out through the side of the ship, and it suggests that the hold is breaking open and all the material that's in it is crashing out the side of the ship. That they would have used for their land campaign. But who knows? I'm not an expert on guns, gun carriages, or wheels. So I'm just digging them up and let people speculate then to their heart's content.
Margaret.
Habla muy poco español. David dice el nombre Pedro Blanco muchas veces. ¿Quién era? ¿Irlandés o español?
Español. Sí, era un soldado que iba a bordo de la Juliana. Él pertenecía a una de las compañías, era un soldado de los tercios. Como muchos otros barcos, la Trinidad Valenciera, el primer barco que naufraga en Irlanda, pues te llevaba soldados del tercio de Nápoles. Es decir, era un soldado. Por eso, precisamente, encontró un pluriempleo con Hugh O'Neill. Se convirtió en su guardaespaldas. Pero no solo en su guardaespaldas, sino en su hombre de confianza. Lo que yo he leído el sitio de Kinsale, cuando él escribe y dice: ¿a quién le voy a dar las cartas para que vaya a don Juan del Águila y preparemos la estrategia de la batalla? Dice que solo puede confiar en él. Y Pedro Blanco atraviesa el sitio, el campamento inglés, lo cruza, le da las cartas a don Juan del Águila, vuelve a cruzar el campamento y después estará en la batalla de Kinsale. Sí, es un nombre. Yo a veces, salvando las distancias, me gusta pensar en Pedro Blanco como casi el maestro de Alatriste, el protagonista de las novelas de Pérez Reverte. Se llevan unos años, en realidad. Es un hombre de acción, es un soldado, es un avezado soldado español, que no hay que olvidar que en el siglo XVI los tercios españoles eran los grandes soldados de la época.
Gracias.
De nada.
Poco, porque,
por poco, sí.
Porque es por Carlos IV, o sea que son unos 40 años más.
Sí, bueno, son 40 años, son 40 años.
Más preguntas, please, more questions.
Hi, thank you for the talk, both of you. Very, very interesting. A question for Fionbarr. At what depth is the wreckage sitting now, and is it difficult to dive it?
No, it's not. Well, they're relatively shallow. You're talking about 5 meters of water, maybe up to 8, maybe at depending on the tidal range at any particular time of year. But 5 meters is probably the average, and they're close enough to shore, within just over 100 meters from shore. So, but that's during as I said, they're in the kind of a surf zone. It's a very stormy sort of part of the foreshore, if you like, and that can make it tricky enough because not only the currents of the tidal changes, but also the dynamics of the sea at that particular point can be quite rough. But we've had some beautiful calm days there as well, and people have snorkeled out from the shore to have a look at what we were doing. So I mean, that can tell you how close we were, and yet it hadn't been spotted by divers for years. Now, we only licensed the local Sligo Sabbatical Club in 2013 to see if they could narrow down the possibilities for the 3 wreck sites. But then we had the advantage of sonar then that we could run over the area and narrow it down. But the chances are it's been totally buried for most of the last 30 years and rarely, if ever, exposed. But the storms of recent years have done incredible, damage to the coast, but also contributed to the exposing of this material, but also highlighted the potential risk that is there for it, because of that. But yeah, but apart from that, it can be tricky at times, but generally you can get great days out there, and it's very shallow and accessible. In a way, that's one of the reasons why we were sent back to recover anything that was vulnerable, because it was so accessible. There's no way we could leave any of the material that we found there that might be picked up and sold on, so that was a concern.
Thank you.
Fionbarr, I wanted to, talking about the weather conditions, I wanted to ask you something too. Do you think that in the June of 1588, moment in which we have a terrible storm that starts from Lisbon, since the fleet left, apparently it was already a horrible stormy weather, continued in A Coruña and continued until England and turned back to Ireland. So is that normal, or is bad luck added to all the rest?
I think it's bad luck, but you do get incredible storms at that, but you get periods of stormy weather.
Not almost 3 months of storm.
In 2014, 2013, Eddie will tell you, Eddie O'Cormack, off the west coast of Ireland, ferocious storms. But and then you can have a number of years of calm and glorious weather.
We the Mediterraneans, we know that this is not a joke.
No. Well, it wasn't. Queen Elizabeth supposed to have said, "God breathed it," was it? And the Armada was scattered, and England was saved. So maybe there was more than just a storm from her perspective.
More questions, please. Lady. Yeah.
I just wondered, just what you said in the last answer. Is it a national monument? I presume it is a national monument, is it? And I wonder if it is a national monument, when you're not there, or Sligo Sub-Aqua Club are not there, what actual protection is there when it's so shallow, relatively speaking, and when it's so close to shore, to prevent looting or damage? What actually happens on the ground?
Yeah, well, there's a great network of people in Sligo who are watching the beach on a daily basis. They're people like Declan Brune, who lives right over it, who's part of the Grange Armada Development Association. There's Eddie O'Gorman, who lives very close to it. The local police have been informed they regularly would drop by. Sligo Sabbatical Club are licensed to dive it and to report any changes that might take place. We recovered what we felt was the most vulnerable material in 2015, but we hope to go back this year because there could be more material exposed that might need similar treatment. And it's just a local network of people. There's Pranny Rattigan, who lives very close to Streedagh as well. Dr. Pranny Rattigan, very famous for her seaweed recipes. She lives right beside it, and her husband, etc. And it's overlooked by a lot of people. It's watched incredibly.
It's kind of a neighbourhood watch.
Yeah, and when discoveries were made in April, and no information was released until July, it was watched like a hawk. It's watched constantly. There's no doubt about it. We're pretty happy that if anything moves in Streedagh, it'll be reported.
Seaweed recipes. It sounds like design sushi or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, you should get the book or the many books.
Let's work on that. Well, that could be something. This the Armada and the food. Huh?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, the food
would be
that
an
they had,
interesting
yes,
subject.
Yeah,
Please.
exactly. Mediterranean food.
Absolutely,
Yes, yeah.
Please.
Just a question for Fionbarr. How much more could be salvaged from Streedagh? And what indications do we have? What evidence is there to show for other sites such as Streedagh?
Yeah, well, yeah, we tend to not use the word salvage because it's considered to be the opposite to what we do in terms of the definition. There's a lot more could be done there archaeologically at Streedagh, definitely. Just in monitoring, in recording what's there, and recording anything that becomes exposed. But as I said at the end there were 3 ships went down. There were probably 75 guns alone between the ships, plus all the armaments that would have been carried. The Lavia, for example, was a hospital ship, if you like. It had a lot of medicines on board, a lot of instruments that would have been used had they gone on a land campaign that might have been needed to stitch people up after battle, etc. And possibly other remedies that might have been carrying. But and then just the ships themselves, they're from, one is from Dubrovnik, the Santa Maria de Vison, the Lavia from Venice, the Juliana from Catalonia. The whole possibilities there for research into the shipbuilding and the craft of shipbuilding at the time are enormous. And as well as the goods and the smaller items that might be buried there. There's a huge build-up of sand at times over the wreck. At the moment we think what we saw there 2 years ago is totally covered over. The anchors were exposed and now there's at least 2 meters of sand has redeposited over them. There could be a lot of smaller finds to be uncovered there that would give you a deeper insight, if you like, into the life on board those vessels. But that's why they need to be protected and monitored at least. But any campaign you wage is very costly, so we can only do a certain amount, with resources we have. But they'll be there. There'll be people investigating those wrecks long after my time and long after that again, I'd say. And plus the other wrecks around the coast. There's, as I said, 6 have been investigated up to a point. There's more work to be done even on those sites. And as well as that, there could be, there's work ongoing to try and identify the other wreck sites, like, as I said, the San Marcos of Spanish Point in Clare, and the Coronada and the Keys of Santa Ana, those ones that went down off Donegal and Mayo. There's possibilities of doing more work on those with the information we have, and one at Mulladerg, possibly off Donegal. But there's possibilities that bit by bit more and more information will be uncovered about them. But there's a huge amount of information there to be followed up on from the sources.
Please.
I'm reminded of the Mary Rose, the Henry VIII flagship, isn't it, which was recovered successfully, albeit it was half buried. Now, I presume these techniques are transmitted across yourselves and back and forth. Yeah.
Oh, they are, and we work closely with them. Yeah.
Just to finish, is there any suspicion there might be enough of the ship, either any of the ships, that you'll be able to restore and bring them to shore? Or
the Mary Rose.
Romantic?
I think the dynamics were different for the Mary Rose to the location in Portsmouth compared to what we have at Streedagh, and I think the wrecks broke up. I think they were beached largely rather than sunk, so not like the Vasa or the Mary Rose that sank into deep water and just sat there for centuries. We have wrecks that were, you know, thrown up on the shore and then for centuries were impacted by massive storms and that kind of impact, which would have broken them up, I'm sure. So we won't be lifting anything like the Mary Rose, I'd say, that's for sure. It'll be coming up in fragments, you know. Yeah.
I've got a question for David. The question would be, do you have reference of any biography, now that we are about the historic novel as a genre in which it's really a fashionable one, but do you have references of any biography about Francisco de Cuéllar in Spain? As far as I know, I've got no, or any novel about it or something else, because it's a very literary personage, isn't it?
Es un personaje fascinante, es uno de esos nombres no tan anónimos, porque el capitán Francisco de Cuéllar es un personaje, es el gran náufrago, el gran superviviente de la Armada, porque después de 8 meses dando vueltas por Irlanda y pasándole de todo, en Amberes escribe esa carta tan famosa, esa carta a un amigo donde describe una Irlanda fascinante. En realidad no hay demasiada información, no es un personaje muy conocido en Irlanda, en España. En Irlanda sí, Francis Kelly, como he dicho, es el gran historiador que está investigando mucho sobre la biografía, y es uno de esos personajes, insisto. Francisco de Cuéllar es... en una ocasión, en el año 2013, yo hice de asesor histórico y de guía para un equipo de informe semanal, el gran programa de reporterismo español. Entrevistamos a Eric Fratt, es un director de teatro de Nueva York, afincado en Irlanda. Él hace unos años hizo una obra, era un mix entre ópera, teatro, música así variada, con la carta de Cuéllar como inspiración. Cuando lo entrevistamos, lo recuerdo perfectamente, él nos dijo: yo la primera vez que leí la carta de Francisco de Cuéllar pensé que este hombre se lo había inventado absolutamente todo, que era un español un poco quijotesco, que fabulaba con esas historias maravillosas, pero cuando empecé a investigar y a leer libros de historiadores, certifiqué que ese hombre había vivido eso. Entonces, Eric Fratt nos dijo una cosa que yo lo había pensado hace mucho tiempo, y lo lanzo ahí por si hay algún productor de Hollywood en la sala. Dijo, la historia de Cuéllar es una historia de Hollywood. Concretamente dijo, es la película Salvar al soldado Ryan en Irlanda, la Irlanda del siglo XVI. Y yo no lo hubiera expresado mejor. Es un personaje perdido en el gran marco de la Gran Armada, ese choque de trenes entre Felipe II y Isabel I, en esa gran historia, que haciendo el paralelismo con Salvar al soldado Ryan sería el desembarco de Normandía, el final de la Segunda Guerra Mundial. Pues ese personaje perdido en una Irlanda absolutamente desconocida, pero con una curiosidad maravillosa. Es un personaje que a mí me hubiera encantado conocer, porque tenía esa capacidad de ser muy permeable, muy curioso, en todo el modo de vivir de los irlandeses, también de cómo eran de guapas las irlandesas. Recuerdo perfectamente cómo Francisco de Cuéllar dice que eran muy hermosas pero mal compuestas. Significaba que para un hombre acostumbrado a la corte española, las irlandesas eran muy guapas, pero él dice que solo iban con una pequeña manta, un pequeño tocado. En su relato queda constancia de que Francisco de Cuéllar hizo muy buenas amistades femeninas en Irlanda. Quizás lo de los Black Irish tenga algo que ver nuestro capitán. Insisto, es un personaje absolutamente fascinante. Y yo aprovecho en mi relato de Pedro Blanco, aprovecho algo que ni la ficción ni mis mejores sueños de escritor hubiera encontrado, que es la carta de Cuéllar. Algunos de los personajes, recuerdo perfectamente una porción del relato de Cuéllar, cuando después de naufragar en Streedagh, una vieja, dice él que iba con vacas, le dice, ve hacia el norte cruzando ese valle, y él llega al lago Glencar, y él ahí dice que encuentra unas casas de construcción muy rústica, se mete en el interior y en la oscuridad de la noche escucha un susurro, y él hace una invocación a la Virgen. Entonces los que hacen esos susurros son 3 soldados españoles, desnudos, como su madre los parió, dice él, que piensan que él es un diablo, y él piensa de ellos que también es un diablo. Así que es fascinante encontrar algo así, pisando el territorio, además, con la carta de Cuéllar. Yo creo que eso no tiene precio.
Efectivamente, yo creo que la carta de Cuéllar sigue siendo el nudo gordiano de una historia sobre el personaje, sobre la época que queda pendiente y que creo que no los irlandeses, sino los españoles son los que tendríamos que hacerle justicia. Vamos a ver si conseguimos que desde el Instituto Cervantes este llamado fructifique y ojalá que dentro de un tiempo nos encontremos que alguien ha recogido el guante y que tenemos entre manos un manuscrito sobre la historia, novelada evidentemente, pero una bonita historia que haga honor a esa carta del capitán de Cuéllar. ¿Más preguntas, por favor? More questions? So I think it's time to thank you for your presence here. Gracias a todos y esperemos que next year we will continue with the Armada and to honor the past. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.